I was reading Tokyo Ghoul recently, and there's an antagonist that reminded me a lot of Heath Ledger's Joker. Not because they're the same, but because they feel like two sides of the same coin. Both mad clowns, and both revealing a truth, revealing an uncomfortable perspective about the world. And the more I pondered on it, the more I realized I don't think they're wrong, I just think they're incomplete. Now, before I get into it, I just want to say to the Tokyo Ghoul fans, I'm going to focus on a very specific aspect of this character and not get into the specifics of his character arc, because unlike the Joker, Furuta is filled with a backstory, a plot twist, hopes and dreams. He's even almost an anti-hero sometimes. And the Joker is larger than life. The Joker is less a human and more an ideal personified.
See, their morals, their code, it's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
Joker's perspective is centered on humanity itself, less so on the structures of humanity and more so on people, the psychology of them. And his belief is simple. His belief is that people aren't as good as they say they are. They aren't as good as they think they are. He thinks that people are comfortable in society. People have a facade and they're lying to themselves and they're lying to the world, but all it takes is one bad day. Now, they don't actually say that in The Dark Knight, but the whole philosophy is heavily inspired from the Killing Joke comic by Alan Moore. Of all it takes is just one bad day to break and to become evil, to become as deranged and crazy as the Joker. And that's why he does what he does. He wants to expose the world. He wants to hold up a mirror and watch the world burn. And Furuta, in a similar way, wants to watch the world burn, but he wants to watch the structures of the world burn, not necessarily people. Our predecessors asked, what's the best way to control the public? It's by focusing their attention on one place. If the idiots are in lockstep, it's not too hard to make them kill themselves. And so, we create fitting enemies and the CCG eliminates them. The clowns, Tsukiyama, etc. At times it's politicians, celebrities, journalists, terrorists. It doesn't matter. As long as they're calling the shots, there's no fear of going hungry. While Joker targets people, Furuta targets the systems of the world. Because Furuta grew up in an environment, he grew up understanding the truth of the world. He grew up understanding that this world is built on lies. These systems, these institutions are not truthful and they're not moral. So instead of rejecting it outright, he infiltrates it. He's a part of it, he goes along with it, and he's kind of on his own side. There's the bad side, there's the people controlling everything, and then there's the good guys, and then there's his own side, where he's gonna manipulate everything and try to rise to the top to break it down piece by piece while being in control, and then abandoning his power. So he's an anarchist, and in a way he's saving the world. His journey facilitates the heroes saving the world, but he does this with no regard for human life. He views everything like a game. He views himself and everyone else as just pieces on a board. And that's what makes him a disturbing mad clown like the Joker. Now, why do I say they're incomplete? Well, first of all, you kind of have to look at what they actually do, because it's not just their ideals, it's also what they do and the way they go about it. Neither of them have empathy. And there's a sadistic, playful cruelty about them that is deeply unsettling. There's a parallel in both of their stories that these characters have that I believe has to be intentional by Sui Ishida, but I haven't found any proof of him acknowledging that. But there's a moment in both of these stories where both of these characters create a scenario where innocent civilians are dressed as clowns, and the good guys are aiming guns at them to kill them. And in Tokyo Ghoul, Batman isn't there to save them. And it just goes to show you how deranged and sadistic these two characters are. So that in of itself shows a lack of wisdom and just mental illness and misguidance. But when it comes to Furuta, when it comes to where I agree with them and also where I see the issues, I do think people understand on some level that the rich are in control, the powerful control the world. But I don't think people fully appreciate what that means. I don't think people fully understand how deep that goes. And Furuta is pointing that out in his story, and I think that's true in our world. People think a new administration, a new leader, a new policy, whatever it may be, is going to actually change things. And maybe it will in the near future, in the immediate future. But in terms of the bigger picture, the power tends to stay where it is. The faces change, but the system keeps going. whether it's media, distractions, celebrities, journalism, like Furuta says, or like immigration or going to the moon or various other things that people get caught up in. Controlling the narrative is controlling the narrative. But not to get too nerdy, but also to get nerdy. That's what the prequels are about. That's what George Lucas was talking about, what he was warning about in those stories, about how a democracy can fall while people are still thinking they're in control. And Furuta, he sees all this in his story. So Furuta is absolutely talking about true things, but where he goes wrong is he does this with no empathy, and he does this for personal selfish reasons. He's not actually trying to save the world. And then there's the Joker. What he says about people rings really true, because I do believe there's a difference between being kind and being good. And I think most people are kind, meaning that most people are civil, they're polite, they're sociable, but deep down, they don't really care. Deep down, they're just selfish, because as soon as the pressure hits, people change. And you see that in all various forms of life. We saw that a lot during Black Friday, during the Black Friday era, where everyone would go and people would get kind of primal. People would get crazy and like, this is mine, and violent even. And then we saw this, of course, during COVID. People got very tribal and very fear-based, and I understand it, but it was just crazy to see how people were turning on their neighbors so quickly. And then also you see it in online discourse. You see people, they're hidden behind the computer, they're hidden behind the screen. So therefore their true desires come out, their true darkness comes out, and they say some horrendous things sometimes. And it goes to show you how, I'm sure most of those people that are saying crazy comments, if you met them, they're just a regular dude, or it's a loving mother. But on the comment section, there's a real dark desire there. And that's what the Joker is talking about. In relationships, with your coworkers, your family, your friends, there's backstabbing, there's gaslighting, there's manipulation, there's just real cruelty that people have, but it's always just hidden behind a smile. It's hidden behind doing the kind things that you're supposed to be doing. But again, I think he's incomplete, because I don't think this means that people are bad. I don't think this means that inherently, at the end of the day, we're all just evil, wild beasts. Because I do think this all just stems from weakness, or more specifically, fragility, being fragile. I think people have weak, fragile egos, belief systems, lacking critical thinking, lacking morals. Good ethics, good morals is so important, and so many people, especially in this modern world, lack that. And I think that is so dangerous, because we've seen in the past, when you have weak morals, when you have weak morale, you resort to self-preservation. You do what's easier. You do what you think is going to protect yourself. And that can resort to violence or immorality. And you see that exploited by Furuta and Joker. And I do think this can be fixed. I do think people can change that, as long as you focus on being stronger. When you look at modern institutions, that's not what they promote. They focus on other things. So it's kind of up to you to make yourself stronger, to really figure out what are your ethics, what are your morals, what do you really believe in, and to just make yourself a stronger person, not so weak, not so fragile. That's how you start a positive cycle, not a vicious cycle, not the cycle that we're currently in, or so many families are in, by learning from the previous generation who often has a very weak foundation. It's so simple in a way, but I understand how incredibly difficult. Easier said than done, you know? I mean, like the classic saying, it all starts with making your bed, cleaning your room. Basically, starting with yourself, working on yourself, taking care of yourself. If every member of society worked on themselves truly, the world would change drastically in just a year. But of course, that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, I just think it's very interesting how these two mad, evil clowns were saying such truth about the world. Yeah, I just wanted to give my thoughts on that, because as I was reading Tokyo Ghoul, I just kept thinking about Joker, and I really, really love Heath Ledger's Joker. And yeah, just wanted to talk about this. So let me know your thoughts on my thoughts. Very loaded, very perhaps controversial. So yeah, I would just love to know your philosophies, your thoughts on these two characters. And check out my video I did on Tokyo Ghoul, where I explore why I think it's a special story, why I think it feels so personal, because it explores a very specific philosophy through various characters. And also check out my playlist, because I have a wide variety of art forms and philosophies I talk about on this channel. So right there, it could be a little bit more organized, and you could find what you're into. Thanks for watching.